So thank you, everybody, and looking forward to the next hour where we can present on the North African market for exporters who have food, beverages, or other things that go into our agricultural sectoral mix. And I'm joined here right now by Belil, who's in Tunisia. Belil, do you want to say hello?
Hello, everyone.
And we have Selma in Morocco. Selma? I saw her on the screen. And Sakina, would you like to say hello? Okay, maybe they're worried about the microphone. But in any case, there's three of us, and we're just holding thumbs, as we say, for Sandra Matty from Egypt to be joining us as well. So let me just quickly see if she's joined us. I don't think so. Selma, are you there? I see that you're muted. Could you say hello?
Sorry, earlier, I double muted myself. I'm sorry. This is
Oh,
Selma
okay.
from Morocco. Looking forward for this call. Thanks a lot, Richard.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And so we're going to be talking about an area that is actually very important for American exports of agricultural goods, and it's getting to be a much more important market. And if we start looking at the figures from North Africa in terms of what they're drawing from the United States, it's becoming a more and more important market for American produce. So I want to I see that Sandra's just joined us as well. So, yes, hi, Sandra. We're just starting. So why don't you say hello from Egypt?
Hello from Egypt.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to be going through the North African market. But again, first of all, I want to just indicate where our staff are located. We have staff in 17 countries of Africa, and we're here to serve you. Your company's based out of the Western United States. We're very knowledgeable about the African market. We have a very well-experienced staff with a lot of years of helping American exporters getting into this market. And we are looking forward to helping you. Now, we've been working with WUSATA for just more than 2 years now, but we've been working with American companies since January 1999, when we've had a very good entry point to working through American state governments. So just as I like to remind everybody every time we have one of these presentations, Africa right now has about 18 or maybe 20% of the world's population. Can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
somebody was saying hello.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
But by the end of the century, it's likely that Africa will have more than 40% of the world's population. And so it makes it an important market, particularly in a sector where the number of people that will be consuming your product actually makes a big difference. And in the food and beverage sectors, in food ingredients, and in the feed ingredients sectors that we work with, animal proteins and all of these areas, it is really an important number, because we're approaching potentially half of the world's population just in the early part of the next century being in Africa. And so this is an important figure. We've actually got just past the $1.5 billion, 1.5 billion population in the continent of Africa. But today we're going to be focusing on this region, and we're going to include Mauritania because it really is more of a Maghreb country than a sub-Saharan country. So we like to include Mauritania as part of our North Africa mix. And so if you're knowledgeable about some of this area, that's a good thing because it is a very important market for American exports. And if you're not knowledgeable, then we can help you out through the WUSATA programs. And we're looking forward to working with you and just learning along with you and helping you to get into the markets that we can reach into. So altogether, we've got 7 countries that we'll be talking about tonight. The first thing is that presently, agricultural exports from the United States are just over $2.2 billion into this region. Now, if we look at the total export number for Africa, it's 4.3 billion. So North Africa, just those countries that we showed you here on the map of Africa, actually are importing more than all of the rest of Africa combined. And so this is interesting because it indicates a relatively high standard of living compared to the rest of Africa. It indicates a differentiation in tastes that are being developed. And if you go into Morocco or Egypt or Tunisia, you see a lot of American brands that you may not see in the rest of Africa in terms of restaurants, foods in supermarkets, and these kinds of things. So there is a pervasive youth culture that's interested in American goods. And although it isn't the easiest market to get into, there's a lot of good draw and a lot of good push. So we've got a lot of buyers who are interested in American products and a lot of good vendors who are interested in these markets. So particularly intermediate products where you can sell things like specialty beans or dried nuts or and anything that goes into something else. In South Africa, where I live, we indicate that it goes into the beneficiation process. So something that goes into something that would be processed into the final product in the regional market has probably much better potential than a finished product. But so we've got a very good and very well-developed market. And fortunately, we've got some experts on the call who've been working with us for quite a while. And I'm going to be asking their opinion as we go through the presentation on just on each of their markets. So the first thing is that Africa has a very fast-growing population, as we indicated before. And although North Africa has only a small portion of that 1.5 billion. So they're approaching in the next few years, it'll be approaching 300 million and estimated in another few years to be getting close to 400 million. And you can see the population pyramid. If you're used to this when you went to school in grade 7, they showed you these, and the more it looks like a pyramid, the younger the population is. And over here on the left, we see the general population levels of each of the countries. And we can indicate also that in Africa, presently, Egypt is the largest economy in all of Africa. So it is an important market generally for all of Africa. It's followed by South Africa and interestingly enough, Nigeria, which was the number 1 market. Because of austerity measures in the government, I believe it's fallen down to the 5th largest. So Kenya is also important, but there's others that are in that top tier of economic sizes, but population is often driving that. High growth is driving that as well. And a lot of the economies in North Africa are doing relatively well in terms of growth, but particularly Morocco. But I'd also like to say that as we're looking at the demographics, the general age average in Africa is 19.5. So Africa is a very young continent. It's really driven by a lot of youth dynamics. But if we look at the median age in North Africa, it's 24.9, meaning that North Africa are the old people in Africa, although that's still a very young age. If we look at other countries, particularly in Europe, you have some where the average or the median age will be in the late 40s, such as Germany or Italy. And you see a few that are a bit younger, maybe France, which has a demographic of just around 40 years old. And so we have a very young population in North Africa, but we can also see that in the long run, that the replacement value for the human population, it has suddenly taken a steep decline, and the countries are probably going to get maybe up to 400 million, and then they're going to stabilize in population. So the big growth in that African number is going to come predominantly from sub-Saharan Africa toward the end of the century. But right now, North Africa presents for the next couple of decades some of the bigger opportunities for American agricultural exporters. And here's just a graph that indicates some of the growth levels across Africa. And we can see that North Africa is about in the average, but doing well. And we're expecting that we'll be seeing growth around 3 or 4% in the next coming years, which is pretty good. This is real growth, and it is outstripping the growth in the population. And when you see that happening, you know that on average, people are getting more affluent. They're able to afford more, and they're diversifying their diets. They're looking for new things. They're able to access the internet. They're looking at recipes. They want to create new things for their homes, their families. And so the importance of the growth there is important to recognize in Africa, in North Africa. And we're seeing that the growth figures are reflective of a strong growth. So we're expecting maybe in this year a 3.4% average. It could be better than that. It could be worse. But these are just some figures that we pulled out of the African Development Bank. And we do have a good real growth rate in the region. So just going to Egypt, and I'm going to call on Sandra for a couple of questions. But Egypt has a very dynamic and diversified market. There's a lot of different types of manufacturing. There's a lot of food processing there. There is a very large population, and as I mentioned, it's the largest economy in the African continent. So maybe, Sandra, if you could, and just make sure you're unmuted, if you could just give us some comments about how American products are accepted on a cultural level in Egypt.
Well, what you said, Richard, at the beginning holds true for Egypt as well, is that the products that do better in Egypt are the ones that involved in a manufacturing process, the intermediate products. American products are perceived very well when it comes to food franchise. We can find also a lot of American products in the supermarkets, but there is an advantage for European retail, especially retail food, because it comes in custom free. So there is a price advantage there, but specialty products are perceived very well. Cereal, grain, tree nuts, seeds, and oil seeds are top of the U.S. Imports to Egypt.
Thank you, Sandra. And you're going to be assisting with a product showcase for a very important Egyptian food show in December. Maybe if you could tell us a bit about that food show, because it really is one of the most important food shows in the region.
Food Africa, beginning of December. It's one of the biggest, and it hosts a lot of food trade, inter-Africa food trade, but also inter-Arab food traders. And because Egypt has a big food manufacturing sector, So a lot of Egyptian companies also exhibit in this exhibition. It's huge for North Africa, for the whole of Africa, the Arab world, and there are a lot of international sellers and buyers there.
Thanks a lot. We have uh, a very interesting project that we're working on in Morocco right now. And maybe, Salma, if you could tell us about some of the tastes in Morocco that might be changing because of the internet, and what are American food preferences? What American food preferences do you see coming into Morocco, if any, right now?
Yeah, for sure. So, Morocco in the recent years have been, supporting a lot of U.S. companies that were looking to enter, the Moroccan markets, and particularly in, the food and agribusiness sectors. And part of this, which provides, favorable conditions to the American exporters. It is the free trade agreement that is in between Morocco and the U.S. Regarding the American products, they're very welcomed in Morocco, especially since the free trade agreement has opened a lot of doors for a wide range of U.S. products. So the U.S. exports to Morocco have grown significantly in the recent years, and American food products in particular are gaining traction due to their quality and also the competitive pricing enabled by the tariff reductions. And also in between, the young population here in Morocco, it's very open to a lot of U.S. food. So, for example, we see a lot of we see a trend into trying some food chains here in Morocco, like Dunkin', like a lot of U.S. foods that are popular in Morocco. So basically, they're very welcomed, and yeah, that's about it.
And when a typical middle class family goes shopping, do they go to shopping malls? Do they go to markets? What are the habits of a middle class family that might be notable that you could describe to an American audience?
So historically, Morocco has supported or had a popularity in informal markets. But in the recent years, we see that retail giants in Morocco have gained more popularity. For example, we have supermarkets and hypermarkets like Carrefour, Majan, and other that have increased their sales, given that uh, the population started questioning the quality and the origins of the products. So the modern retail formats have seen rapid expansion, um, and it's also price competitive because there isn't much difference between the formal and informal markets um,
Mhm.
at this stage.
Okay. And one more question for Morocco while we're on the topic. You have very close proximity to Europe. And you mentioned some of the big retailers are European. Do you have a big influence with Europeans, and how do you see Americans competing with the different European tastes that are very close to your borders?
So, given that Morocco is close to Europe, and even the the history in between uh, Europe and Morocco is very is influencing the market. But given that. Um, that, you know, the US products are gaining popularity here in Morocco and they're very price competitive. I think that there is, you know, a window to explore here and, you know, to explore and to actually, um, you know, create some sort of competition with the European, European products. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Salma. That's really helpful. And we can see that since the inception of the free trade agreement with Morocco, that the United States has quadrupled its exports to almost $4 billion per year across all sectors. But what it indicates is a growing interest in Morocco from American companies and accessibility into the market. And we've seen that Morocco has also increased its sales into the US, but not so much. And so we can see that the United States has a very large surplus in trade with Morocco. Now, this doesn't include services, which are also an important aspect of sales to Africa. And if we look at total services as well, we're probably looking at another almost $4 billion altogether, with using the general rule of thumb that services have just recently surpassed the goods sectors. So Tunisia, we've got Belil with us, and Tunisia is a place that, if you don't know about the history, Rome and Carthage fought each other, and Tunisia is the home of ancient Carthage, but it's also the home of a lot of tourism. It's got a lot of close links to other Arab countries, but also to European countries. So it's right in the middle of the Mediterranean and at the crossroads of trade. And it is a smaller economy, as we can see from the numbers here on the stage. But maybe if Belil, if I could ask you the same question that I asked the other two, tell us about the presence and acceptability of American branded goods and particularly food in Tunisia, and what are the general impressions of working with American companies?
Well, thank you so much, Richard. So for the Tunisian market, we have the food products. Daily products represent 15%, which is combined products like almond milk, chips, dark chocolate, avocado-based products from the US. And talking about the consumer trends, especially the Tunisian demographic is 60% of youth. So there is a shifting of preferences toward international flavors and premier offerings. So we can say like 40% of consumers prefer international sourced products. And here we are talking about the US-based products. Also, there is a high demand where the youth, they are more open to try new products and flavors of US products, giving this popularity. Most of the retailers, there is a supply chain of small shops that the youth have access to these kind of shops to get access to buy these products directly, given also the there is the older people, even there is traditionally or historically European market presence in the Tunisian market, but they are also shifting to try new products, especially from the US. And we are talking about the last year, there is between 3 to 4% of GDP annually projected of new products coming from the US. I hope.
Thanks so. Oh, sorry. No,
Yeah.
thanks for that. And tell us about one thing that's important for all of these countries is the tourism sector. And Bilal, I'm not sure exactly what you know. You don't have to quote any statistics, but the tourism sector is important right across all of the Mediterranean, and that means that food services and food service companies that support those that sector is important. Could you tell us how important tourism is to your country? And I think it would be reflective on the other countries that we're also discussing.
Okay. Exactly. The tourism is the second sector in Tunisia that is part of the local GDP of Tunisia. It is very promising market and very important due to gives an experience for tourists to try new culinary products and combined from new flavors. And it is a promising market actually that can help giving growth of or access to new products in this market. So given that 40% of the global maritime traffic passes North Tunisia, and we are part of the Mediterranean countries, we have access to French, Spanish, Italian, and tourists from Greece mainly, and they're open to try products, Tunisian products at first place, but they are also loving to try international products in this market and have access to one of these products is the US products, especially also Moroccan products, and it's a promising market actually.
Thanks so much, Bilal. That's really helpful. So we've got a market right across North Africa that is very integrated to a lot of the same industries that we see that draw in a lot of ingredients and partial finished foods, and then food produce. So we've got a lot of different things happening. Now, Algeria is also a big market, but it's one that because of its history, hasn't been as active with the United States, but it's one that I didn't want to ignore on today's presentation. Now, although Morocco, we see that the total export figures from Morocco look very high, but it's mostly petroleum that we get into the United States. And when we also look at the total number of exports from the United States to Algeria, as a rule of thumb, the totals that we see going into a lot of the other countries that we're posting, about half of that is related to agriculture in one way or another from the United States. So the United States is one of the key exporters to each of these countries in terms of what the total exports are, and agricultural goods that run the entire gamut are an important aspect of the total amount of exports that go into this region. So Algeria is one that, although its figures are not as big as Morocco, it does have a much bigger potential, but it doesn't have as friendly a government to doing trade with the United States. So we're not going to see a free trade agreement with Algeria anytime soon. It's interesting to note that if you look back in your history, that Morocco was actually one of the very first countries that recognized the United States at independence. So it was supportive of the United States from 1777, even before the United States was actually fully independent, and they were still fighting their war of independence. And in 1786, Morocco had an official embassy going to the United States. The United States had a representation in Morocco. But if you remember Algeria, If any of you remember the old Marine song about the shores of Tripoli, one of the first wars that the United States fought was in the Mediterranean, and it was fighting pirates that were getting involved with the shipping. And so back in, I believe, 1803, somebody might want to correct me on my history, but so there is a history of positive and maybe a bit negative things that go way back. The United States is an important actor in North Africa right from the very beginning, and it's been considered an important player in the region, even since independence, when it was just a brand new nation. So just very quickly, and maybe I'll have Selma do a comment on the cold storage sector, because I know that where she's based, there's a fully operational and highly developed cold storage system there in Morocco. But you can see that in Africa, the servicing of electricity, and this is one that represents where electricity is available in homes. But you can see that the countries that we focus on in this presentation have 100% home-based electricity. It might not be quite 100%, but in fact, if you look at it compared to the rest of Africa, you can see how much more highly developed it is. But this is an important aspect when we look at cold storage, logistics, and when we look at getting your channels of distribution fixed, particularly if you need to keep something at a certain temperature, and you need to keep it moderated. So Selma, maybe if you could just tell me something that you might know about the Moroccan industry and its sophistication level relative to importation.
Yeah, I can do so briefly, as I am not very well versed in this sector, but given that, you know, Morocco is a leading exporter of perishable goods, the cold storage sector plays, you know, an important role in, you know, the agricultural value chain. So it's really important that these products require a temperature controlled environment to maintain their quality during both the domestic distribution as well as international exports. As
And just
maybe, yeah, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, which are the major ports where you would find cold storage facilities, and which ports typically are most of the food imports coming through?
Yeah, so for Morocco, it has been investing in TCL infrastructure for quite a while. So we have Tangimet, which is the largest port in Africa. It's in the city named Tangier. It's in North Morocco, and there's also the Casa Port, which is the port in the Casablanca city. They have been playing a very important role in improving the logistics infrastructure in Morocco.
Okay, so thanks a lot. And Sandra, over there in Egypt, at the other end of the continent, tell us just a bit about channels of distribution as they come into the port system there in Egypt.
The port of Alexandria and the Sokhna port by the Suez Canal are very developed. There's a lot of investment, especially happening in the Sokhna port by the Emiratis, by the Chinese, or not only by the Egyptians. And it's very, very well developed. And the country has undergone in the past 10 years, maybe, a lot of infrastructural development in terms of fast trains for commodity transfer, improvement of roads, and of course, when it comes to cold storage sector, it's very developed. Reefer containers and all that is all in place. Also, Egypt, as Salma mentioned, is also a big exporter of fresh produce. So infrastructurally, all is in it's in a good place, Egypt.
Oh, thanks so much. And I know that you know a little bit about the Libyan market, and Libya is a country that we didn't have a slide earlier on, but although we do have one later in the presentation very quickly. But Libya is a place where the country is actually divided into two political factions. But is Libya a place that it is possible for American exporters to send things to?
Yes, but they have a very particular way of business that is not very organized and systematic, and a lot of hidden cost can be expected. There is a lot of under-table commissions and stuff like that happening. So it's a bit tricky to understand how things go. Just had a call there this morning with somebody on the ground in Tripoli, and almost in every sector there are 2, 3 tycoons controlling the sector, and the key to entering the sector. Tripoli is under one, let's say, one government, and Benghazi under the other. There are two rulers of the country, let's say. But I think there is an opportunity there. There are a lot of Turkish products there, so there are countries that made it there and were very successful with a lot of persistence. Yes.
Oh, thanks so much for that. And I'm going to go to the next slide, and maybe Bilal, if you could tell me something about the Arab Maghreb Union. It is presently an important regional trade group for the region there, and we have a map. Bilal, maybe you could just give us some comments about how this grouping is operational there in North Africa.
Yeah, thank you so much. So the Big Maghreb, as we called it, is combining 5 countries: Libya, Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria, and Mauritania. It takes the third superficial big parts of economic since the 90s, but there is no legal or official of this Big Maghreb regional. Tunisia played a key role between Libya and Algeria to facilitate trading, especially since the 90s. Libya have fought against the US just to give access to Libyan people, access to food, beverage, and water, and any other goods. Also, Algeria during the 10th, it's a darkened age of Algeria having civil war. This area of trading have the potential to be the 5th economic internationally, talking about oil, petroleum, talking also about phosphogyps, and many other products. But talking about food and beverage here, there is a high potential to have access to 200 to 230 million people, with a youth population more than 70%. So it's a promising market and very important to have a deal with it directly. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Bilal. And just again, if you've been following our African presentations, you'll understand that the African Continental Free Trade Area was formed in 2021, and that's an important aspect of the African intra-African trade. So we're seeing a big interest from African countries in trading with each other. And so they formed a common market, and they're working on common protocols such as a common phytosanitary protocol, common labeling protocols. There's a lot of things that as an American agricultural exporter, you're going to have to be aware of as these protocols are formed. So Africa is coming together just as Europe did, and it is coming together in the largest common market in terms of geographic size, population, numbers of countries. So presently the total economy is just over $3 trillion, but it's growing very quickly. And so it's something that if you're starting to understand how to get into one or a few African countries, your analytics are going to be improved because the same regulatory environment is starting to apply right across the continent as these protocols are being negotiated, developed, and then ratified across different countries. So it's important to understand too that groups like the Arab Maghreb Union and other regional groupings are tying in with the African Continental Free Trade Area as it's being developed. And so we want to always express that American exporters should understand what is happening and to be on top of this as it happens. And typically that's why we're in the market, so we can help with reporting, helping you to understand when important things happen, when regulatory changes happen that affect buyers, when there's new things coming, such as the free trade area in Morocco. We've got a couple more on the way with Kenya, for example, and it looks like even Angola is looking at becoming very close to the United States, and I think that they're going to be trying for a free trade area soon with America. And I'd also like to point out too that right now the U.S. Department of Agriculture is planning a trade mission to Morocco, and I believe it's the acceptances and application period is closed because it's happening in December. But the U.S. Department of Agriculture has focused a lot of attention on Morocco, and they have made it one of their key countries, as well as the rest of Africa. So the countries that we're talking about are getting a lot of attention from the United States, and America wants to participate more with these markets as they're becoming more important to America. Just quickly, again, this is a map of the countries that have ratified the African Continental Free Trade Area, and I believe that Somalia and Madagascar have done it. So there's only a couple outliers where the parliament of their country hasn't ratified it. So it looks like it's got complete acceptance, but the program was started in 2021. So it's just that there's some latecomers to it, and they'll likely be joining very quickly. So again, in summary, we have a region that has very fast economic growth, and we've got a place where American brands and tastes are being generally more and more accepted. I think maybe, Salma, if you could tell us just a bit about halal. How important is halal to the market there in Morocco, and maybe by extension the rest of North Africa?
I would say it's very important, given that Morocco is a Muslim country, and so is the rest of the North Africa, especially in the food and agriculture sector. It generally involves certain guidelines, such as the prohibition of some products and some kind of beverages that the Muslims cannot really consume. So for the domestic market in Morocco, halal certifications is really important for the food products that are sold in here. and most consumers demand halal certified food. Um, I wouldn't say that, for example, alcohol is not consumed at all in Morocco, but generally the consumers really demand, halal certified food. Um, as well as for the exports, um, a certification is also essential, especially to Morocco and also to all of the North Africa countries. Um, and I believe I covered it all. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Salma. And again, the market is very youth driven with a business culture that is also being very youth driven, and that makes for interesting connections when you go to a lot of countries. Typically, you might meet a company that is operated by a very older generation person, or you might meet people that are younger, and you're going to find that there are differences in how they operate. Typically, younger people are more merit driven. They tend to be highly educated and very entrepreneurial. Older people tend to work with established elites and to work with inside connections and working within a relationship field. So there's different ways of working, different ways that their business cultures are able to function. And it's important for you to understand as an American exporter that when you come to a country, particularly these emerging countries with very fast growing youth populations, that there is going to be a big divergence sometimes. The other thing is that we have to always keep in mind that there is a very creative entrepreneurial base within North Africa, and that is growing. There's a lot of interest in working with the United States and working within the common market. The African free trade area is an important aspect that we have to understand. Arabic and French are predominant, but English in business is growing. Maybe if Sandra, if you could give me a comment about the strength of English in Egypt, and maybe if you have any comments about the rest of North Africa.
Well, the case in Egypt that French is not predominant here, but English is really very widely spoken. Even Egyptians amongst themselves exchange emails mostly in English. Also because of the tourism, so you can find English naturally spoken as a second language on the streets, and yeah, but French not so much.
Mm-hmm. And what about in Morocco or Tunisia? Bilal?
Yeah, it's totally the different between like Tunisia and Egypt. French language is the second spoken language, but among the youth, there is a big shift in the last 5 years to spoke the English language as daily habits, and it's a growing language, and it's going to be the second language by the end of the 2030, I believe. So especially in the business culture or the business market, English is going to be the second language here.
Hmm. And
I believe
Selma,
also,
I know. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, sorry, but I believe also Morocco is the same thing for Tunisian markets.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Selma, we're just about to have a trade mission with some American companies coming to Morocco. Do they need translators?
I believe that, I'm gonna build on the comment that Bilal made. So in Morocco, it's the same. French is pretty dominant in here. Um, but there is some English is also used, and it's growing in here a little bit. But I do think having interpreters is important, but there's also always someone who speaks English in all different spaces here in Morocco. So although French is, pretty dominant in the professional world, but given that Morocco is expanding into all the different international businesses, it's growing here.
So I'd like to quickly thank each of the three. And if you're asking for these slides, you get a country slide for each of the countries that we were talking about here. And I'm just going through them very quickly. I don't want to recite any statistics to you, but just so you know, if you want the slide pack, that you will get a slide for each of the countries, and it will give you just some background. How important is it to when you visit these countries, how important is it to learn a few words of Arabic?
Yeah, I can jump in here. It's great. It's really friendly, and generally Moroccan people are very happy when they know someone wanted to like learn the language, and they're very open to it. So it's really great. And just hi, hello, how are you? It's very easy. Um, but in general, you can have very friendly conversations with Moroccans uh, with any language that you would like.
Thanks so much, Salma. So we didn't want this presentation to be highly technical. What we wanted to do was really introduce the fact that we have people right across the North African tier of the continent that are capable and able of helping you to get into the markets. We're a team that's highly experienced right across Africa, but we really want you to know that when you come in, you've got some confidence and a friendly face when you're working with Wusata. So we'd like to open up for questions, and if maybe Kelsey, if you could moderate the question period, then we can respond to those questions as they come up.
Absolutely, yeah. Feel free to write them in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, that works too. In the meantime, I will send a follow-up email with the PDF of the presentation that Richard just showed. So thank you, Richard and team. We really appreciate you having you here. I don't know, did you see this question from Deanna yet? How do we request a slide pack?
Let me open up. Oh, yeah. Well, I will be sending the slides over to Kelsey, and then she will be
that's what she
sending
meant
them
by
to
slide
everybody.
pack, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. And feel free to use any of our slides for your own company use if you want to. If you need to show them to your team to get them interested in the market, you know, and we understand too that we're working with a large range of sectors that are actually here in the audience. So we didn't really want to focus too much on any one sector, but we can help you out with follow-up through Wusata's programs to help you understand the different sectors available to you as exporters in the different countries that we do cover.
Can I ask a question? Hey, this is Shane. When I was in Algeria a couple of years ago, there were some tensions over Algeria and Tunisia, I believe, had recognized the sovereignty of the Western Sahara, and I know there were some tensions with Morocco. So I didn't know if there was trade going between those countries right now, or if those are kind of separate entry points if you wanted to do, say Tunisia and Morocco for import or something like that. I didn't know if that was doable right now with the same channel, or if there's not trade going between them.
My recommendation presently is that if you're looking for a distributor Morocco that would cover Morocco. The United States presently has accepted Morocco's sovereignty over the Western Sahara. And so that has created some tensions, although I believe that there has been some lessening of tensions between Algeria and Morocco, but it has been a big bone of contention, as you indicated. So quite often what we have done is look for separate distributors in Algeria when we've been asked to. But maybe Selma, if you could respond to that relating to whether a Moroccan company can also distribute into Algeria freely.
I don't know about freely, but I think that the ongoing political conflict and also the closed border between the two countries, direct trade between the two countries has been minimal for many years. And you know, the Western Sahara dispute and any other geopolitical issues have led to strained relations. So the direct trade or free trade or export into Algeria would be very challenging. So yeah, that's where the the conflict is at right now.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Hey, we are a small company based here in the US, and we produce a high-end cooking ingredient called fennel pollen. We distribute it through smaller specialty distributors to higher end restaurants with specialty products. Is in this North African region, is it like a traditional distribution channel there?
I can jump in here because we're doing now a project for a similar food ingredient for example, for the baking and dessert industry. And we found indeed that there are very specialized importers and distributors, wholesalers for certain food ingredients, servicing HoReCa and industry. Is this what you mean?
Okay. Yes, that's what I'm looking for. Again, it's more of a specialty food distributor here in the US, like let's say in the Atlanta area or the Los Angeles basin there. There are a number of higher end restaurants, so there'll be specialty food distributors that service those higher end restaurants. And that's really what I'm looking for is a specialty food distributor.
Yes,
So
there
that
are.
sounds like I'm sorry. It sounds like that's what you're talking about.
Yes, I'm just not sure of their scale because so far from the project I'm working on now, it's a niche market. So I'm not sure about the scale, but they definitely exist for the very niche segment.
Okay, great.
Okay.
How would I contact you, Sandra, just to maybe get some ideas in your area there?
So Richard?
Talk to Kelsey and talk
Yes,
to your WUSATA rep. Are you from California?
Yes, we are.
Josh Eddy might be the one to speak to, but I'll let you go through WUSATA's channels to reach into our office.
Yeah.
All right,
When I send that follow-up email, Gary and anyone else, If you do have a specific question for USADA, just reply to me and I'll get you I'll point you in the right direction. So thank you all so much. Just to be conscious of time, we are a little over. So before the end of the week, I will send over the follow-up email with the PDF and the recording of this, as well as some information about the upcoming Africa events that we have. So with that, that is all. Yes.
Super. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. And grateful
Thank
to
you.
the team in Morocco, Tunis, and Cairo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.